to the Inspire Wealth podcast with Prof, where we dive into the world of real estate investing and wealth building strategies. I'm your host, Mallory Meehan. I'm a real estate professor, attorney, and seasoned investor here to guide you through the ins and outs of creating wealth through real estate. If you're looking to take your real estate knowledge to the next level, don't forget to subscribe to stay up to date with our latest episodes and offerings. Welcome to another episode of Inspire Wealth. I am your host, Prof, aka Mallory Meehan, and today I'm joined by Dr. Jeff, the debt-free doctor, which I'm really excited to talk with you, Jeff. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mallory. Looking forward to it and glad to hear that you're up in Penn State. So hopefully we can get some football tickets out of it.
Yeah, we have a pretty good team right now, so that's always a great thing. All right, so Dr. Jeff, tell me a little bit about how you got into real estate and maybe transitioned from being a doctor and what you're doing now.
Yeah, literally it was by accident. It was actually caused by an accident. I went to dental school, then I went to a residency, periodontal residency. So I'm a periodontist by trade. If you don't know what that is, it's basically mouth surgery. Do a lot of extractions, implants, bone grafting, that sort of thing. Kind of need your hands. It's pretty important.
Yeah.
So 10 years ago, we were snow skiing. We go every year, and I fell, injured my hand, injured my wrist, and that was really the first time I ever thought about what would happen if I couldn't work. What would happen if I couldn't provide for my family? My kids were 8 and 6 years old at the time, and that was really my wake-up call, because it really showed me how risky I was operating financially. It's not like I worked at Starbucks or I was a banker or something like that where you could, work with broken arms or whatever. It's very important. So I really took a deep dive into how wealthy people operate. And I know that you're a college professor, and I have a son that's plays football here at a local college, and I have my other son's going to college next year at Arkansas. And it's how can I say this in a way that I don't get everybody to quit college, but it's we're in a system and it traps us, and unless you realize that, then you will stay trapped your whole life. And what I mean is, you can go back to kindergarten. Every year there's a system to where we, first grade, second grade, we go to high school, but everything is geared towards getting us out. A lot of times getting us in debt, which I had a lot of debt when I got out of dental school, and then putting you in a job, career, whatever. Mm-hmm. And we're focused on that career, and really, when I was in, up until that point where I started venturing off into other things, I was just focused on every year building my dental income. If you're a plumber, if you're a cop, if you're a teacher, if you're whatever, you have one income stream. It's bad because two main reasons: it's the highest taxed, it's active income, and even worse, it involves you trading your time for money. And once I started realizing the wealthy people, they don't operate like that, I kind of felt duped. I was like, man, I've been conned, but it's my fault. So I made it a point to change the way I was operating, and then also to get on podcasts like this, to start a website, to YouTube channel, because I like to give people options. Perfect example, my brother's an engineer. He loves working in his group. He would never think about going out on his own, being his own boss or whatever. To each his own. But you know what? At least he has an option. Mm-hmm. And I just want to give people options. I don't want to tell them you have to do this. If you're happy with your active job and you want to work until you're 80 or whatever, more power to you. But for those that don't and want something else, I'm trying to get that message out there to people, especially the the people, the high income earners, doctors, dentists, attorneys that go to school a lot, they have a lot of debt, and they're facing a lot of burnout.
Mm-hmm.
And the best thing to cure burnout is to have options. If you want to walk away or you want to cut back, it's great.
Yeah. And I think that your message is exactly in line with my message too, is that, we need to be educated on our options. And without having that foundation or that knowledge base, again, you're going to work a W-2 for somebody else, helping them make money. And, one stream of income. And like you said, the highest taxed stream of income that you could possibly have. So I want to know now, after your accident, what happened? What was your first kind of break into real estate?
Well, the two main things that I learned from the wealthy people is the majority of them own real estate. And at that point, I didn't have any. And all of them had multiple streams of income. I only had one. So that really helped me narrow my focus on I need to invest in real estate for multiple income streams. Now, back then, the only type of real estate I was familiar with was you go out and you buy a rent house and you put a tenant in it. That's the only thing I knew how to do. That's the only thing I knew about, because I knew it was like I'm not going to get into these big apartment buildings and all this stuff by myself. I couldn't afford to do it, and I almost pulled the trigger on a house here in my town in Louisiana. But then I was invited to a conference for dentists where they were teaching about real estate. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go there and let them teach me how to do this. And little did I know that it really opened the door to me about how many different ways you can make money from real estate passively. Never heard of that. From real estate syndications, partnerships, hard money lending. I mean, the list goes on and on. I was just like, this is what I need to do. And back then, this was 2017, 2018, crowdfunding online was big. So that's how I started, just like $1,000. Didn't know what I was doing. I was like, that apartment looks good. I'm gonna invest in that. And started building my confidence like that. Started making a little bit of money. Then I went up 10 grand. And then I said, you know what, I'm gonna invest in this apartment building in Oklahoma. It was $50,000. That was like the big step up for me. Again, I didn't have a clue what I was doing. And long story short, every investor in that deal lost their money because the operator went into an area where in Tulsa where it was a bad crime, all the tenants were moving out, so they got the bright idea, let's fix up this apartment and people will naturally move back. Well, it didn't happen. He ran out of money. We all lost our money. But again, most people would have quit. But again, in anything in life, to keep you going, you have to have a strong enough why. And I was determined. It didn't matter what it took. I was determined to figure this out. I learned a lot of mistakes. I learned I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what those numbers meant, IRR and cap rate and all that. So I started a website, debtfreedoctor.com. I started a YouTube channel, and I just started as I was learning stuff, I was posting it because I think people would benefit from that. Plus, it helped me to learn, because in residency it was see one, do one, teach one. I
Mhm.
would see it, I would do it, and then I would teach it. That would just help me to learn. And just started getting this little following, and people would sign up on a website for my emails and newsletters. And once I started figuring out the path to go, I finally got into an apartment syndication. It started paying. I found a legit group, invested again, and that's how I got the ball rolling at that point.
I love it. So
Mhm.
I'm so happy to hear that even though you might have lost money on your first, real big investment,
Mhm.
that you didn't stop. And I think that's really important because one of the things with real estate is that you're going to have those times. I mean, I just experienced it. I had a tenant that I had to evict and, they trashed the house and I had to go through the whole process of fixing all the house up, not having, keeping the bills paid and not having any rent coming in. And, here I am. I'm still talking about real estate because I still know the power that it has. So I
Mhm.
think that's awesome. Okay, so you started in apartment syndications, and now let's transition. Where do you typically find yourself investing? What kind of assets, and where do you direct people that, are some of these high income earners?
Yeah, I'll take a step back a little bit because once you start down this path, you think, okay, I'm going to invest in real estate and that's it. You have no idea the different doors that God opens and closes for you. Because I was getting ready to invest in a syndication in Dallas. And at that time I had like 200 people on my email list that were accredited investors, which I don't know if does your audience know what that means or
Why don't you go ahead and
okay.
describe that?
Accredited investors, the IRS basically states if you make $200,000 a year or more if you're single, 300 or $300,000 a year if you're married, or you have a net worth of $1 million, not including your house, which when you think about that, what's the American dream? Get a house, but they don't even consider it an asset. So think about that. That again, you just have to realize what you're being taught and then what they're really telling you. So you're an accredited investor, and because most of the time these syndications, you have to be an accredited investor to invest. So I had like 200 people on my list. This was back in 2020. And the group was like, "Hey, Jeff, you're getting ready to invest in our deal in Dallas. Yes. What if you also promoted it to your 200 people on your list? And if we go through the legal ramifications and all that to make you a co-general partner, do you mind doing that?" I was like, okay, yeah. And they would send out an email that had everything on it. And I just changed it up. This was before AI and chat GPTs where you can just do it easily now. So I changed it up. I sent it to the list. 48 hours. I sent it out again, but I kind of changed it up. And then they got in touch with me. They said, "Hey, look, you don't have to send out any more emails because, we've been sending out emails to our investors and, based on our 700 or 800 investors and then yours, we've raised enough money to close a deal or whatever." It's okay, great. And they're like, "Well, how long have you been doing that?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" I said, "How long have you been raising capital?" And I said, "What is raising capital?" And they said, "You just raised $2.4 million in 48 hours from your email list." I was like, "What?" So my point being is you think you're going down a road, but then it's like there's something else that opens up. So now I raised over $30 million last year, all online. But the thing is, I started with a website. That's where it started. And so if you're in school right now or you just got out or whatever, and you think, okay, I'm just going to go get a rent house or whatever, you have no idea once you start getting outside your network. I was just in dental meetings all the time. I got out of that into different networks. The sky's the limit. And it's insane. So my point is I just want to tell people there's tons of options out there in real estate that you don't even have to really own a lot of real estate. You could just bring other people, bring other investors. Real estate, you need money to buy real estate. Well, if you don't have money, but you know people that have money, that's all you need to do. And
Right.
guess what? You're a real estate investor. So
Yeah.
that's how I got into the capital raising. So I started raising capital for apartments and self-storage. And then the pandemic hit and prices were crazy. And now the majority of the apartments and self-storage and that sort of thing have really taken a hit because of all the interest rate hikes and all of that. But one of the main things is insurance costs have just gone through the roof.
Hmm.
And these apartment syndicators, they literally can't pay their insurance costs and pay their bills and their investors. So what they've done, they've just paused the distributions. Think about it. Think about if you have a mortgage. I'll put it in perspective for you. Let's say your mortgage is $3 grand a month. And then you get an email tomorrow saying, hey, Mallory, you're a nice girl. You've been paying $3,000 a month, but unfortunately it's $12,000 next month. It's like, wait a minute, you just 4X my for what? That's just what it is. So that's what's happened to these apartment syndicators.
Mm-hmm.
And then I eventually, again, I was in another group, a Facebook group, and a dentist had partnered with a real estate attorney, and they own two RV parks. And they said, "Hey, do you think any of your?" I didn't know anything about RV parks. Do you think any of your group would be interested? And I said, "Well, we can find out." And I helped them raise just a little bit of money for a project. Worked out well. And then I started seeing the differences between RV parks and apartments. And it's so much cheaper to operate. Insurance is so the cost, but the main thing that I like about it is think about our country, affordable living, people want to be mobile, people want to travel. That is where everything's going. And the multiple streams of income from RV parks, and it's just really taken off. That and then I eventually got into mobile home parks too, which is pretty similar as well. Again, affordable housing. So that's the main area that I've been in the last few years. And I can tell you it's really helped me and my investors make so much more money in those asset classes than the others.
I love that. Okay, so you're now into RV parks and mobile home parks. Is there a particular market that you tend to target, or is it just if an opportunity arises that you kind of move forward?
For the mobile home parks, we're strictly in Louisiana. That's where I am. I like to be able to go and drive and look at, like if you own Apple stock, you can't go look at Apple stock, but I own, several mobile home parks here, and I can go there, do some mowing, deal with the tenants. Well, I just enjoy doing it. Um, the RV parks are mainly in the Sun Belt, but we also have two up in my favorite state of Montana.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I love that.
Mhm.
So, do you find already existing parks, or are you looking at land development when you're evaluating some of these opportunities?
Yeah, for both asset classes, our business model is so many mom and pop people own them. So think about it. They're 65, they're 70, they're tired of dealing with it. A lot of them don't even have a website. They're still taking cash, they're still taking checks. So we can go in, we can bring it up to what it should be, gradually raise the rents. And that's typically how we'll make our money is on the buy, getting it right.
Hmm.
Just, for instance, many of these mobile home parks in my area, the people haven't raised their lot rent for 10, 15 years. And we can go up 50, sometimes $100 day one. You have 100 lots, that's just instant equity. You just can't do that um, in anything else. And then my real estate attorney told me, and he does he tons and tons of real estate uh, returns. He says, and I didn't know this, RV parks and mobile home parks have the highest appreciation out of all asset classes. So and he said, apartments are around 15 to 20% of bonus depreciation year one. So of the purchase price. So if you get $1 million apartment, you could write off 150 to $200,000 on average the first year. Mobile home parks, RV parks, 60 to 80% average year one. So tons more opportunity for depreciation on the front end.
So help me understand that a little better, because when I think of an RV park, I'm basically thinking of a spot with land and there are some hookups for, RVs to connect to. So how are they able to depreciate, and what are some of the, revenue streams that you generally get through those types of investments?
They told me I'm not an accountant, I'm not a cost seg person, but they told me the majority of the accelerated depreciation comes from the land improvements that you're getting. You're able to accelerate a lot of those costs.
Got it.
Driveways, parking lots, if you put in a pool, landscaping, street lighting, that sort of thing.
Okay, so that makes a lot more sense to me because I was
Mhm,
like, well, we can't depreciate land, but what can we do? We can,
mhm.
improve the land and then depreciate those
Yeah,
improvements.
and you know, we were talking about insurance costs. Think about what it would if you had a 50 unit apartment building and a hurricane or tornado hit it. Think about the cost it would be to insure that versus an RV park. You just tell people, hey, a hurricane's coming, pack up your stuff and go.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
not a whole lot, unless you have these big structures, which most of ours don't. There's not a whole lot of stuff that can damage. Thus, the insurance costs are a lot less. And you
Mhm.
got to think about the revenue streams. Okay, you have an apartment, you own a house, a rent house. They're paying you. You probably sign a 6 or 12 month lease. They pay you rent every month. Well, that's your tenant. Well, there's three types of tenants in RV park. The transient, that's what you can charge the most. They stay nightly,
Mhm.
a weekend or something like that. Our parks in Montana, the summer, they stay for weekends or a few days. That's where we can charge the most. Weekly and monthly, we got people a bit. We have several parks that are worker parks, and they'll come there and they'll stay for weeks or months at a time. So those are so you may have a park that has a little combination of all three. So some people go, well, aren't these just seasonal? Well, you have people that work. So again, it keeps the revenue kind of stable. We have parks that do tons and tons of money on propane sales. Got to have propane,
Mhm.
ice, laundry. We have arcades. We have golf cart rentals. The firewood. I mean, the list goes on and on. What you could do depending on where you are versus again, an apartment, a single family home, it's just rent.
Yeah. So for these, let's focus on RV parks because I like that idea. I think I
Mhm.
like, having the multiple types of tenants, transient, midterm, we'll say, and long term in a way. So describe to me the management. And so if I'm looking to invest in a RV park, what kind of things do I need to be concerned about to make sure that it's operating effectively and that, to your point, we're making sure that people are paying, we have additional revenue. So I'm assuming you have to have some sort of a team on site to be able to run that. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, I'm not really big on the operational side. I'm more on the educational capital raising side. But from from what I do know, it depends on what type of park you get. So, for instance, we just got a park in my area that was all monthly. It's all workers. There's not a whole lot of management that
Mhm.
it's kind of like a mobile home park. That's just it's people paying monthly. The manager that that we have there is just part time. Versus if you have one that's a lot of nightlies, that's a lot of turnover, and the other one that we have in our area, it's more like that. And weeklies, we have an on-site manager, and she's there, I think every day, but maybe Sunday, like from 8 to 4, 8 to 5, something like that, where she just works in the office. You go there, you're checking people in, you're checking them out. But again, it's not like you got to go clean a hotel room or a room or Airbnb. It's just,
Mhm.
they leave and the next one comes in and here's your spot number 32. And we built a little dog park and a little, dog washing station and, have some outdoor concerts when the weather's nice. So it just depends on what you want. Now, again, if you don't want to deal with all that, you can hire people would love to do that. I mean, she was semi-retired or retired, and now she's got something to do.
Mhm.
And if you don't want to do any of that, you can just invest like a syndication. That's what our properties are, to where you just get the revenue stream and you just get a quarterly distribution. So again, there's multiple ways to do this, depending on how. Again, what we talked about before, giving people options.
Okay,
You got
so
to
let's
figure out, do you want to be an active investor
right.
or passive investor? And then from there, you can make your choices.
I think a lot of people start out in the active thinking that they can do it and thinking that, you're going to be able to, and then they realize just how much time and energy goes into it. And so then they slowly start to transition into that passive investing strategy. So let's assume, and maybe we can just do a case study here. Let's assume that I am an accredited investor and I am looking to invest in one of your RV or mobile home parks. And I have, let's say, $100,000 that has been, making me a little bit of interest in CDs or other sort of investments. And I'm looking to deploy that into one of your assets. Explain exactly kind of what historically, if you know kind of some of those numbers, what kind of returns people can expect and how long they're typically holding their money within those specific syndications.
Yeah, that's a good question. When we underwrite properties, we try to get about the same type of returns as close as possible. Typically, a 5 to 7 year hold period, getting you anywhere from a 7 to 8% preferred return. And then whenever the project exits, we want to try to do everything we can to double your investment. So turn your 100 into 200.
I love it. Those are
Yeah.
awesome numbers.
Mhm.
So, what are you typically seeing for, let's say, somebody who went to school, got a higher degree? I have three higher degrees, and so a lot of money in debt. And, I'm working a W-2, I make six figures, but I still have all this debt to cover. What kind of strategies do you help some of these high income earners who still have that amount of debt kind of break free of that debt?
What kind of debt are you talking about?
Like let's say student loans and other kind of debt
Mhm.
like that.
Well, the way that I answer the question is what would I do if I were in your shoes? And I just look back at what I did, and if you're making six figures, like most of the people that I deal with, I think that you could do, as long as you know what you're doing, you could do both. You can pay down debt aggressively, but you can also invest. Again, if somebody says, "Well, I would rather pay off my student loans first before I start investing," do it. I mean, you know what's better for you than I do. Um,
Mhm.
I I didn't want to miss out on, I started off with, that's how I got the website name, Debt Free Doctor. I started off with the Dave Ramsey. This was 20 years ago.
Mhm.
And I just went through his baby steps. Again, I got the emergency fund. I paid off student loans, but I didn't want to miss out on because he's always big on don't invest in a 401k or anything like that until you pay off your debt. I didn't want to miss out on all that compound interest because I was already getting out later in life. I was 30 because of how the school I went to. So I was disciplined enough to where I could pay down the student loan debt aggressively plus invest in like a 401k. Did that, started the 529 plans for the kids, paid off that first house. And that was 2 years before my ski accident. And it was great. We were debt free. But again, you didn't have any options. You had one stream of income, and then you relied on a 401k that you had to wait until you were 60. So again, he's putting you on the path of trading time for money the rest of your life. But again, that's what most people do, and that's what most people like to do because they don't know any other way, and that's fine.
Mhm.
And if I probably would have just kept doing that if I didn't have that accident, because that was all you only know what you know,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So that's what kind of led me down the path. But to answer your question, I I do recommend at least getting rid of the student loan debt as quickly as possible. And then if you have like an employer that does like a 401k match or whatever, at least do it up into that. And then if you have any extra money left over or whatever, then so you're kind of covering all bases. You got some stuff that's compound interest with the stock market diversification. Then you're building your passive income streams on the side.
Mhm.
And that's how I've done it, and that's how I teach it.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And I think that it's really important for people to know, especially those that have, a 401k or a match or something like that, is that you want to be able to retire poor, not poor, you want to be able to retire rich or at least wealthy. And with a 401k, you're not taxed on that money until you take it out. And so having those passive income streams that are taxed at a lower level are definitely going to be able to help, you know, satisfy the tax rate that you may potentially be in if you're only going to be collecting your 401k.
And the most important thing that everything that we're talking about is going to do for you, it frees up your time.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're on the path like Dave Ramsey teaches, or that you're probably on the path now, you have to work until you're 60 or 59 and a half or whatever minimum. Most people work longer than that in order to touch your money. Well, what if when you're 44 or 45, you don't want to work full time. You want to work part time or whatever. You can't because of the system that you're in, because you're trapped.
Mm-hmm.
And my goal is to educate you enough to where if you want to get out of the trap, you can. If not, then stay in it. It's whatever, whatever works best for you.
No, absolutely. Okay, so I want to take a transition and Jeff, tell me, are there any good books that you're reading now or books that you recommend some of your investors to take a look at?
It all starts with a mindset shift, and most people are, like I said, going through life and going through the motions. And every wealthy person podcast book that I've read, and I'm sure you've heard this 100 times, people always reference the Purple Bible, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I like that, and I like the cash flow quadrant because that's teaches you how you're making money. Because most of the time, most people don't understand how they're making money. They're either employee or they're self-employed,
Mm-hmm.
and you're trading time for money instead of being the business owner or the investor. And I always like to get people to start there because you have to change the way that you think about money. You have to change the way about how you're making money. If you don't, all of this other stuff we're talking about, it won't change. And I'll give you a perfect example. I'll know whenever I'm doing a call or consulting somebody that hasn't changed their mindset, because they'll come in and go, I want financial freedom and I want passive income streams and this and that. And so we'll start working through it. And then they'll say, well, I'm only going to have just a little bit left to invest every year because, I have to max out my 401ks and I have to do this and this. And I'm like, well, obviously you haven't changed your mindset about this. And they're like, what are you talking about? Like, you're still on a path that you're going to be trading time for money.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, you're telling me you want to go to the beach, but you're going to the cold, the mountains. So you got to figure out where you want to go. And if that's really where you want to go, then you have to change your direction. So it starts with that mindset shift. So that's typically what I recommend that the people start with. And then I've got 400 plus videos on real estate syndications. And I mean, you can just go on YouTube or Google and search. There's plenty of stuff out there, but unless you get that mindset shift or change, it doesn't really matter. People aren't going to take action. Unfortunately, that's just how it is.
Yeah. And it's a shame because I think, again, to your earlier point, is that we're brought into this cycle of we're educated for the goal of finding a job or a career. And unfortunately, that a lot of times means that you're trading your time for money. And I think that COVID probably taught us one thing is that we all want more time. We all want more freedom. We all want to be able to do the things that we want to do on our own terms. And I think that, with more people like you educating people, hopefully we can help bring a new realization for the power of different assets, the power of different investment strategies. And I love your enthusiasm and I love your investment strategies in RV parks and mobile home parks. And so, Jeff, tell us, how can people get in touch with you outside of searching you on YouTube?
The website's debtfreedoctor.com, and it'll have a link there. I have a free passive income training. So you just put your name and email address there, and you will have access to that. We'll email that to you. My Instagram and YouTube links are on that website as well, debtfreedoctor.com.
Awesome. All right, Jeff. Well, thank you so much for being a part of the show. And until next time, Prof M out. And for those who want a more hands-on learning experience, check out our online courses at inspirewealtheducation.com. Whether you're just starting out or looking to expand your investment portfolio, I've created step-by-step guides and resources to help you achieve your financial goals. So hit that subscribe button and let's start building your wealth one episode at a time.